James Kemp and Lieutenant, U.S. Navy. They were actually cutting back at the time. Remember, President Reagan was at the 600-ship Navy, I think that's what it was, and built it all up, and that was about when I was coming in. And then he was out. They were by the 90s. They were like kind of an after Desert Storm. Like they were starting to cut things back, so they were trying to let people go. I had come in as I didn't go to the academy, so I was Naval Reserve. I was active, but I was Naval Reserve, and they were the first ones to go. You could petition for conversion over to regular Navy, and I did. But like, you know, I had nothing to distinguish my career. I'd actually been kind of foolish on board the carrier. I had all this opportunity to get my engineering officer of the watch certification, and I never did. I made progress on it. I was just like there was always just something else, and I didn't get to it, and it was stupid because you know in my head I'm thinking, oh yeah, there'll be other opportunities. It'll be okay. I'm just a first ship. People were telling me, hey, you got to finish this up. I'm like, and then yeah, there wasn't going to be another opportunity. Like yeah, blew that. So without that, like why did they want me? So I tried to stay in, man, didn't. I would have wanted to go like postgraduate school or whatever. If I had stayed in, it worked out because I had kind of a sweetheart from after college, a woman I knew from Newark, actually, from a church I was at in Newark. And we were going to get married. And either, if I stayed in the service, my next 5 years were going to be at sea. And yes, people do that all the time, you know, even new marriages, and ours would have survived, but it wasn't the way she wanted to live her life, and I didn't want to put her through that. The other possibility was the reserves, and I really would have done the reserves. That was the real reason I joined in the first place, was that I felt that, I think I mentioned, everybody should have some military experience. The country should have solid reserves. Except that we started to see the writing was on the wall that they were using the reserves more and more for things that they used to only use the active duty for. Because they were cutting the active duty back, and you don't have to pay the reserves when you're not using them. You don't have to bother with supporting them. You don't have to, like, they get walked all over. But they were starting to use them as a disposable kind of, you know, not disposable in the sense of dying, but, you know, we'll bring you in when we need you, and then when we don't, you're on your own. And so that was one aspect of it. And so they're being used more for active duty things, and I would have no problem with that if it was like, U.S. got attacked and all hands on deck, absolutely. But this was, you know, these were commercial wars, you know, and like ideological stuff. I'm like, no, it wasn't. That's not the way you want to do this, and I just didn't want to be in a position of having to call my wife, you know, get a call from work, call her, honey, tomorrow I'm leaving, and I don't know if I'm coming back, and like so the reserves were out too. So that's how the leaving went. The Navy set me up for, in a good way, for project management. That's what I started doing. And it ended up between the project management that I learned really the skills how to do, and the leadership and management. They actually had a course at OCS called Leadership and Management. But evidently there's stuff that you just don't learn in civilian life about leadership. That, you know, people got to want to follow you. And you got to be the person, you got to listen to them so you can be the person they want to follow. And they just don't teach that in civilian life, at least not that I could tell. So that between project management skills and the leadership skills, they set me up to be a successful project manager. Tie that in with with just the knack I had for technology kinds of stuff, and I became a combination project manager and system engineer, and we got to develop some really cool stuff for a transit agency, you know, in the 25 years I spent with them. But it was really that what got me in there was the Navy.
And looking at your destroyer service, your first impressions of the Edson when you saw her for the first time.
Absolutely beautiful. So, whatever, I thought 418 feet, 70,000 horsepower of raw Greyhound. She was absolutely beautiful. I didn't care that she was old. I liked the idea that this was a gunship, because they weren't building them anymore. And they say that, oh yeah, naval gunfire support is still something that matters. Well, now they do it with a Tomahawk. But for slightly smaller scale explosions, the idea that with three of these rapid fire 5-inch guns, Edson could do what would take at least 2 cruisers to do, maybe a third, because even a cruiser only has 2 guns, and then you have to coordinate. They're like, you want a salvo in 1 spot, or 3 spots for that matter. Well, actually, with only 2 gun directors, or 2 spots. Edson could do what which other ships couldn't do, and I really liked that.